Yeah, Mom, I'm good to go for this Christmas. You tucked the phone against your ear as you moved through your apartment. It was only a few days until the holiday, and your parents were throwing a huge party. They had always gone above and beyond for these types of things in the past. Their behavior shouldn't surprise you at this point in your life, but hearing your mother's excitement always brightened your spirits.
That's wonderful. Make sure you bring that partner of yours, will you? Your father and I are so excited to finally meet them.
You felt the floor tilt beneath your feet. You'd completely forgotten about that.
Shit!
Cue panic as you frantically tried to remember what you told your mother.
I know you said they're a busy hero, but surely one day off wouldn't kill them, would it?
Well, no, not since they don't technically exist. You pinched the bridge of your nose. Your mother would be heartbroken if she ever learnt the truth. You'd lied about having a partner to get them off your back about prospective marriage partners. Now came time, it seemed, to pay the piper. I'll try, Mum, but I can't force them to take a day off if their work won't let them.
Oh, I understand, dear. Perhaps if they're so busy, you can look into those prospective marriage partners your father and I found.
You groaned out loud at the suggestion.
We'll be expecting the two of you.
She hung up with a cheery,
Merry Christmas!
and you stared at your phone with a sense of dread weighing down your shoulders.
Oh, I'm such an idiot.
Of course they'd want to meet the guy. Oh, too bad they don't exist. You grabbed the pillow from the couch and screamed out your frustration. Your mother was way too sneaky. You smacked the pillow against the couch in an infantile display as you tried to think of a way to weasel out of the whole going home for Christmas thing. You knew everyone would be there, and then your phone would be bombarded. Oh, the very thought had you shuddering. The chirp of your phone snapped you out of your delusions of running off to another country. You spotted the sender and an idea popped into your head. Hey, was just wanting to call you. What's up? You leaned against the counter as you spoke to one of your best friends. Eijiro Kirishima, aka Red Riot, had barged into your life as he'd saved you from a villain during your third year at UA. You'd remained friends in the years since graduating, and you remembered he owed you a favor.
Hey, was wondering what your plans were for Christmas. My parents are going out of town and somehow I scored the day off.
Kirishima's cheery voice lifted the weight on your shoulders. Actually, you heard him pause on the other end. Remember that favor you owe me?
Yeah?
Kirishima's voice was patient. So, I need to call it in. He laughed and told you to go ahead and lay it on him. I need you to go with me to my family's Christmas party and pretend to be my partner.
Wait, what?
Kirishima yelped as you winced at how rushed that whole thing sounded. Yes, please? You spilled the whole story to Kirishima. How your parents were trying to set you up with potential spouses, and you invented a partner to get them off your back. Please? It's just for one night, and I promise we'll be even after this. Silence stretched out, and you were worried he'd hung up on you. Instead, you heard a drawn-out sigh.
Pretty sure with a favor this big you'll owe me.
You squealed.
So you'll do it? Yeah.
You thanked him over and over for the favor. You promised him good food at least.
Make sure to send me the time. I'll swing by your place and we can go together.
Yeah. You gave him the day and time before he promised to be at your place. You hung up and sank to your knees. Kirishima had agreed. You smacked your hand against the floor as you struggled to contain these emotions. Kirishima, the man who had been your best friend for years, whom you had an intense crush on for years, was going to be your date for your family's Christmas party. Oh, I'd swear I was in one of those cheesy Christmas movies if it wasn't for the fact that something is going to blow up in my face. You grumbled as you stood up and dusted yourself off. Now you just had to prepare for the party. Thanks again, Kirishima, you told him as you let him into your apartment. You were almost ready, just needed the ugly Christmas sweater and you were having a hard time deciding. Kirishima looked festive in his. It suited him. He rubbed the back of his neck as you headed down the hall after telling him to make himself comfortable. Why did I agree to this torture? He mumbled to himself, agreeing to be your partner, grasping at any chance to be close to you. He could pretend his fantasy was real that night. He glanced up as you came back in. You wore a baggy Christmas sweater that had twinkling lights on it and red and green striped leggings. You paired it with knee-high black boots, and he had to swallow. Those leggings hugged your legs a little too well. Ready? You asked with a tentative smile. I'm really glad you agreed to do this, Kirishima. It means a lot. You grabbed your jacket and smoothed it over your arm. What are friends for, right? He gave you a wide grin. Wouldn't be very manly of me if I didn't keep my word. You laughed and the tension was broken. He helped you with your jacket to your surprise and then shrugged back into his. How long does it take to get to your home? My parents' place is only a 30-minute train ride away, then it's about a 5-minute walk from the station, you told him as you locked the door behind you. He kept you entertained with stories on the train ride. The nerves hit as you stepped back out into the frigid air. Which one is theirs? Kirishima asked. His hand was on your lower back and it didn't do your poor heart any favors. The sound of Christmas music playing and off-key singing drifted over the night air. Follow the awful singing, you told him as he laughed. He'd met your parents twice before and they seemed to be really laid back. He'd been surprised given how your temper could snap easily. They made it up to the door, and the nerves really took hold in his gut. Was he going to survive the night? You ready? He looked down and he saw the same nerves in your eyes. You weren't as confident as you tried to seem, and that made him feel better. As ready as I will ever be. A few tips. Don't accept any hot chocolate from my uncle. He spikes it every year. Kirishima bit his gloved knuckle to keep from laughing too loudly. My aunt has some opinions on topics. If she gets to ranting, just zone out. She just likes to hear herself talk rather than actually participate in a conversation. You held out your finger as you gave him the pointers about your odd family. Kirishima shook his head as you made an imitation of your grandmother's face. Stop stalling and knock. You pressed a hand over your heart as you gave him an offended glare. Call me out, why don't you? Kinda my job tonight, isn't it? He grinned as you huffed and rang the doorbell. Jingle bells? I told you, my parents go all out. Obnoxiously so, you muttered as the door was thrown open. Oh, you made it, and... Kirishima? Your mother looked between the two of you with her brows furrowing. You wanted me to bring my partner? Surprise! You waved your hands in mock enthusiasm. Your mother turned towards the living room. Put down the alcohol, it's a good one! You covered your face with your hands at her shout. Kirishima jerked in surprise beside you before his body started shaking. You peeked out from between your fingers and you saw him trying to contain his laughter. I am so sorry for my mother, you whispered as the two of you were ushered in. He helped you off with your jacket and hung them up in the closet. Kirishima grinned as he shook his head.
Nah, it could have been worse. This is fine. At least they like me. But can I ask what she meant by the alcohol thing?
You paused to think and grimaced. Probably going to get themselves shit-faced so they could grin and bear any partner they didn't like. Kirishima laughed.
Then I'm on it they didn't.
You gave him a lopsided smile. He was such a good sport about things. You were quickly rethinking your plan as Kirishima was deep in conversation with your dad and uncle. Something about which support companies were the best to work with. He was fitting in too well, which was dangerous for your heart. It made you want things that you couldn't have. While you were in thought, you were suddenly surrounded. Your mother on one side and grandmother on the other. Your eyes narrowed as you glanced from side to side at them. You're up to something. What is it? You grumbled as your mother gave you a sweet smile. It's nothing. I was just going to tell you that it looks so nice outside. You know, your father and I worked hard to clear off the patio and all. Mother, it's winter. Not my idea of nice. She clicked her tongue at you as your grandmother leaned over.
What your mother is trying to tactfully tell you. Go kiss him out back.
Your face went red and you glanced over at Kirishima to see if he heard your grandmother. He didn't seem to hear. You breathed a sigh of relief.
Quit it! The both of you!
You hissed at them. Your mother and grandmother gave you identical stubborn faces, and you idly wondered if that was what you looked like. We're here to enjoy family time. We can kiss whenever. Your mother nodded, and they dropped it for the moment. You found yourself in the kitchen about half an hour later.
Wow, you weren't joking about your aunt.
Kirishima laughed as he escaped into the area. You chuckled and leaned against the counter with a mug of hot chocolate in your hands, alcohol-free.
Oh, hey! Hot chocolate!
You laughed and offered him your mug without thinking. His hands covered yours as he took a sip from your mug. He winced as the scalding liquid hit his tongue, but he grinned when he lowered it.
Good stuff!
You giggled at the whipped cream that got on his lip. You've got a little something. You pointed to your face and he wiped at his cheek. No, here. He wiped the other side. You sighed and reached up. You brushed the whipped cream off with your thumb and without thinking stuck it in your mouth. You froze as his eyes widened. Tension simmered between the two of you, an electric current that ran along your skin. You heard a throat clearing and jumped guiltily at the way your thoughts turned. You saw your grandmother at the doorway to the kitchen. She was pointing up, and you followed her finger.
Merry Christmas!
She laughed and made her way back out to the living room. Kirishima followed your gaze and saw the mistletoe hanging there. Oh, why even put it in the kitchen? That's just too sneaky, you grumbled, as he chuckled at how petulant you sounded, like a child that had been outsmarted by their parents, which in a sense, you were.
We don't have to if you're not comfortable with it.
You glanced back down at the mug. Maybe it was the holiday, maybe it was the sugar, but you found yourself blabbering. I don't mind if it's you. I've really liked you for a while now, Kirishima. Probably longer than I should admit too, actually. You smiled softly at your hot chocolate, watching the whipped cream swirl in the steaming liquid. His hands covered yours again, and startled, you looked up. The intense way his eyes stared at you, as if you were the only one in existence. It had heat curling tight in your belly.
I've liked you too for a long time. I didn't want to ruin our friendship, so I just kept quiet.
He admitted with a sigh. He smiled at you in his usual warm and sunny way as you felt your heart turn over. He leaned down until he was a hair's breadth away from your lips. Kirishima?
Will you be my partner? For real?
Your eyes met his, and you felt tears mist your vision. Yes! You threw your arms around his neck and pressed your lips against his. His hands closed over your hips as he held you close. The cheers from the living room broke you two apart.
I almost forgot about them,
Kirishima admitted guiltily. You laughed as you watched your grandmother wink at you from over the top of the couch. You know, I heard it's really nice outside. He tilted his head in confusion. You stood on your toes and whispered in his ear. There's no prying eyes out back.
Lead the way.